Hello and welcome to the Weird Around Illinois podcast. Today we're going to talk about our investigation of the Barrington area. Now, this time that we went to Barrington, we were actually looking specifically for ghosts. There are a lot of reports of hauntings in the area, everywhere from Cuba Road or Cuba Road, depending on how you pronounce it, to the White Cemetery, which is on Cuba Road, and Rainbow Road. There used to be a mansion on Rainbow Road that has now become a subdivision off Caitlin Road. But there's a rich history of paranormal and spiritual activity here. This area was once inhabited by Native American tribes. The Potawatomi, the Chippewa, and the Ottawa tribes have all laid claim to this land at one point or another. One would have to assume that means there are Indian burial grounds somewhere close by. That also would lead you to believe that there have been Native American ceremonies held on this land, and there's also a more recent history of mob activity in the area. Apparently Barrington was a great vacation spot for mobsters in the era of Al Capone, and there's even a story about him locking one of his lieutenants in an ice house and burning him to death in it.
Wow.
Yeah, that was he didn't play around, and that may or may not have led to later hauntings. There's also this, as I mentioned, this mansion that was on Rainbow Road, where apparently a small child, the child of a caretaker there, was killed either by accident with a falling bird bath, or, as one of his siblings claims, by supernatural means, as an unseen force actually lifted the bird bath and dropped it on his head.
Weird.
Yeah. So, a lot of history in this area, and so with that in mind, it's not really surprising that there have been a lot of ghostly sightings over the years. They say that sometimes people see a boy in PJs or coveralls wandering around the area where it took place, and in talking to his siblings, some people have found out that that was the way he was usually dressed, either wearing coveralls or PJs. And there's even this story, and there's always a story like this about, you drive a certain speed on a certain road with a certain, whatever on your car, something weird's going to happen. In this case, it was you drive down the driveway to this mansion at 37 miles per hour, and you will see the ghost of the child.
I really wonder how that really came to light. Was it just like one person happened to be driving at that speed and noticed?
I was wondering the same thing. I was trying to figure out what was it, what was it, 1937 when it happened, or was it 37 years ago that it happened? Why 37?
Or was there like multiple reports of going at the same speed?
Yeah, I guess that would probably be it, because I couldn't find any other significance to the number 37 in the story. But I will tell you this, I don't know how long that driveway was, but that driveway has now become Caitlin Road, and it's hard to get up to 37 miles an hour on that road safely. So it's not something I recommend anyone do. Some of the other hauntings that have been reported have actually been at White Cemetery, which is on Cuba Road.
Yeah. People have claimed to see like strange lights above the cemetery. In particular, I mostly heard about orbs, like floating. I don't know what to make of that.
Yeah, very common thing that pops up in every cemetery, every ghost sighting.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about that when we had our cemetery talk a while back, but
Yeah.
It makes me curious as to what the orbs are, if they're like little balls of spiritual energy or what. But you're right, they're definitely very common there. So up and down Cuba Road, we've got another kind of common ghost activity that we've heard of in other places.
Yeah, so going up and down Cuba Road, there's a chance that you might see a ghost car or police car that a ghost car basically, either tailing you or just going past you. I haven't gone into seeing any details about that, but just you'd see that, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's and again, some of these legends kind of cross over from like Blood's Point Road and other
Oh, yeah.
haunted roads, and
Yeah, we've heard the same thing for Bloods Point Road, didn't we?
yeah, even down to the part about being pulled over by a ghost police car.
Yeah.
You see the flashing lights in your rearview mirror, you pull over and there's nothing there. There's certainly a common theme here. Now, maybe ghosts are just very unimaginative and always haunt places in the same way. But
They gotta be original at some point. Come on.
yeah. Now, here is one original one that I heard on Cuba Road. Apparently, as you turn on to Cuba Road, sometimes a mysterious mobster appears in your back seat, chomping on his cigar.
Oh yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Did not hear about this one.
No, as I recall, one of you guys was in the back seat when we turned onto Cuba Road, so I think if that would have happened, we would have noticed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But it has been reported by more than one person that this has happened, so it's something to watch out for. There is also on Rainbow Road a disappearing house, and this has also been attributed to Cuba Road. And there's all kinds of ominous instructions about the house that, you know, it only appears on foggy nights, and if you go in it, you'll be lost forever. Apparently, this is another commonality, because there's a similar story about a house in Bachelor's Grove or by Bachelor's Grove Cemetery in Chicago or near Chicago, where this thing just kind of pops up, and you know it's not there during the day, but on certain nights when the fog is there and the moon is right, the house pops up.
With that disappearing house you're talking about, I've also heard that sometimes if you do something, I don't remember what, but if you do something, it would like disappear forever. But I was thinking, how is that possible? How would you know?
Yeah.
If it's there.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to jump 3 times, then run around,
Yeah.
run a mile, go back.
And then it disappears forever until the next person sees it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, some of these legends get kind of twisted around, and you know, I'm sure that there's a lot of stuff that was added to the disappearing house that, you know, had no basis in reality. But another one that had absolutely no basis in reality was the haunted asylum on Rainbow Road. I've read reputable reports from, you know, actual, you know, paranormal investigators who've talked about going down looking for the cemetery, and you have to go down the dirt road to get to it, and it's really terrifying. It doesn't exist. They looked at the property records from Barrington. There has never been an asylum on Rainbow Road or anywhere near it.
Really brings into question the credibility of some of these sightings.
Yeah, definitely. So before you question our credibility, why don't we talk about our investigation a little bit?
Yeah.
We started at Rainbow Road because that seemed like just a focal point of a lot of the haunting, and at least there was a real event there. I mean, we know Billy Kokenauer was a real person. We know it was a real tragedy. We know he has 2 siblings who are still alive and in the area. It seemed to at least have some basis in fact and a good place to start. One of the first things we noticed when we drove into that neighborhood is, wow, that's a nice neighborhood.
It was a rich place. There were the houses were pretty big. I gotta say.
I spend a lot of time on the North Shore, you know, places like Lake Forest and Glencoe and Kenilworth, and even I was impressed by the houses that I saw down here. I mean,
Yeah.
this was something.
And when there's really rich places, it really makes you wonder if they're gonna call the cops on you, because
Yeah.
it's a stereotype kind of moment. But the richer people kind of seem to call the cops easier. That's what I've gotten anyway.
Well, especially when there's a carload of weirdos, you know, stopping in front of their house and holding up undisclosed devices and taking measurements.
They're not used to that.
No.
And in addition to the big like mansions and whatnot, it was also really windy when we went to Rainbow Road the first time.
Yeah.
Oh,
It really added to the creepiness.
It did, and it was the fall. I believe this was our first haunted investigation. We did this even before Bloods Point Road.
Yeah, this is like our practice run.
Yeah, and then we went down Caitlin's Way, which is the road that used to be the driveway to the big mansion, and we saw the pond. And the only thing of note really in the pond to me was those sandhill cranes that we keep hearing about. In all the Mothman investigations, everybody says it's just a sandhill crane. Well, we saw 6 or 7 of them down there.
There could have been a sighting right there, a Mothman sighting.
I will say this though, I shined my light directly at those sandhill cranes, and their eyes did not reflect red. So
No, I didn't see any red.
no.
I mean, I think they have like a little bit of red around their eyes, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
but they don't like glow red.
But we may have disproved one of the Mothman explanations.
Yeah, possibly.
So we spent a fair amount of time in that area, mostly driving. Matter of fact, all driving on that first trip. So we, as we said, that was a practice run, and we did come back a little bit later, probably about a month later, actually, with all of our gear and decided to make a real investigation. And this one actually started at White Cemetery. The first thing I noticed when we got there was the weirdness of the gate. To me, it was weird that the gate was open at middle of the night, and there was a note on it saying, "Please lock up when you're done."
Yeah, were they just expecting us?
I think so. And you noticed something else about the gate, right?
Oh yeah, it was a little bit bent at one part.
Like someone had tried to force their way in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely odd. And then we drove in and parked and walked around a little bit, and I didn't see any of the evidence of, devil worshippers or vandals or anything like that. I'm happy to say that it looks like a clean, well-kept, respectful cemetery. So we did walk around. There's kind of some woods bordering the cemetery. There's some houses close to the cemetery. There's a house right across the street too. Apparently they keep a close eye on things over there, from what I'm told. So we didn't stick around too long, because we didn't want people to think we were vandals.
Yeah.
It didn't seem that haunted.
No.
What we saw.
I gotta tell you, of all the cemeteries we've been to, that was the most comfortable one. I felt fine there.
It was kind of small though, so it did kind of add to the creepiness, I guess, a little bit, just a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the creepiness at all. I honestly, I could have had a picnic in that place. It was it didn't bother me one bit.
I just personally didn't like the compressedness, because as you said, it was wrapped around forest, and then there was just a road.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And not even a place to turn around on the road. We had to back out.
Yeah, that was a little bit stressful.
Yeah. So then we drove up and down Cuba Road itself, and again, didn't really see anything. We had a couple random spikes on the EMF detector. Nothing that couldn't be explained by a passing power line or something like that. Now, someone in our group got that weird feeling, that indescribable feeling of there's something about to happen here. And I remember we actually drove kind of out of the area of Caitlin's Way and further up the road, because they were sensing something up there. And we never saw anything, but there was definitely a strong feeling there. And as we drove up that road, we got a really, really strong high band EMF spike. But that was about it for that investigation. I don't even remember seeing any sandhill cranes that time around at the pond.
So I think my conclusion personally, I think it would just be some of these different sightings might be not really credible, and some, maybe they did happen. Some of them maybe they did, but from what we got, I don't think it's that haunted.
Yeah. I personally don't think any of them happened, to be honest. I would think I'd at least see one thing out of that whole list.
Yeah, I understand, and I don't buy the whole Cuba Road haunting thing, because that just seems too similar to too many other haunted roads. I think they kind of pieced together some legends from other places. But I think there's something to the Rainbow Road haunting and the mansion on Rainbow Road, but I think it's one of those things where, you know, an outside investigator is not likely to find it. I think probably there's somebody living in that subdivision right now who hears creaks on their stairs at night or sees something in their basement or something and just doesn't tell people about it. Very easily be that this is the most haunted road in America and we just happened to be there at 2 times when it was dead.
Yeah.
And not in a good way, not in a haunted way. But based on our... Well, thank you for coming along with us on this little journey to Barrington. And as always, we welcome your comments. We'd love to hear what we missed. If you live in the Barrington area and we did something wrong on this investigation, or we missed some obvious spot we should have gone to, or if you've just heard some ghost stories from Cuba Road or White Cemetery that we haven't heard yet, we'd love to hear it. And thank you again for listening, and thank you for subscribing, and we will be talking to you again soon.